Something unimaginable appeared before the guy's eyes. The young man tried to pronounce the question, but could not because of his excitement. A huge creature that looks like an ice dragon and a little like a forest deer. This entity was several dozen times larger than the boy. The young man, having examined the huge monster, did not understand what it was after all. A man stood nearby. He grinned and said that this creature was the ruler of the snowy plains, the sorcerer Baileys. The huge entity remained motionless all this time. Half a day ago in one large city, suddenly Steve received a message from his boss on his phone. The manager asked the guy when he would arrive so that he could come over and help print several copies of this photo. Steve was outraged that the boss uploaded the photo in animation resolution. The young man was indignant for some time and thought that the printer could be left alone. Suddenly, a giant fish fell from the sky onto the guy's head. Steve screamed in pain and asked who threw it at him, while a wave of blood gushed from the young man's head, after which the guy lost consciousness and fell on the asphalt. People panicked, someone asked to call an ambulance, and sympathized with the young guy. One of the crowd said that throwing objects from a great height could be considered a criminal act. Meanwhile, Steve completely lost touch with reality. He fell into a space-time rift. Someone said that a proofreader had been found, but the young man did not understand who was saying this. The guy opened his eyes slightly and realized that it was all over. His consciousness was losing him again. In this space-time rift, a beast similar to a star cat suddenly appeared. This cat walked up to the crack and looked into it, illuminated by a purple light. The beast enters a rift that connects to Steve's body on the other side. There was some kind of installation that was activated by this star cat. The young man was still unconscious, and suddenly his phone began to glow with a golden light. The guy was still unconscious, and then that unusual beast appeared in front of him. Suddenly, the star cat responded with a glance from the young man and looked at the oozing beam of light emanating from the space-time rift. Suddenly, both the beast and Steve's lifeless body began to be pulled into this rift. The spirit star carried the young man to an unknown place, similar to the mountains, where a snowstorm was raging. A violet aura transported Steve to a snowy plain, and the rift closed behind the guy. Meanwhile, at the Snow Plains Disaster Relief Headquarters, a man sat in the security area and watched what was happening on small screens. On one of the monitors a frame appeared with a huge monster in the form of a centipede. The man notified a certain Mr. Su that an otherworldly world had appeared in the northern part of the snowy plains. The redhead added that these energy fluctuations had already exceeded the A-class standard. The other man on the line told the redhead that he understood and would immediately send a battle group there, and he himself said that he would arrive soon. Meanwhile, Steve was surrounded by a pack of wild wolves. So far these predators were calm, but there were enough of them that there was cause for concern. The star beast was at the guy's bedside. It seemed that he was ready to protect Steve. The wolves were getting closer and closer to the guy. The mystical creature looked at the other wolves with dissatisfaction and watched their every step. Each of the enemies was reflected in the violet eyes of the star predator. Suddenly, one of the wolves sensed something was wrong. Here the star creature transformed into a predator similar to other wolves. The enemies panicked, their eyes were old red from an overabundance of various kinds of feelings, after which the animals ran away, sensing the terrible power of the beast. Meanwhile, a rescue team approached Steve. One of them asked the others to search everything to see if there were any other victims nearby. The man himself carefully examined the entire surface below from the slope. A rescue team helped him with this. Along with the men was a rescue dog. And then one of the men came down the slope. He found Steve and shouted to the captain that there was another one. Rescuers began to examine the young man for a pulse. One of the rescuers said that the guy was seriously injured, but was alive and should wake up soon, and at the same time he injected medicine into his arm to provide the guy with first aid. The captain said that the boy was quite lucky. In such a place those centipedes did not devour him. The man looked at the wolf who was next to Steve and added that this snow wolf must be his spirit beast. Judging by the tracks around him, most likely he was protecting this guy. Suddenly the guy woke up and said that he had a headache. The young man stood up slightly and mentally wondered where he was, where he had been transported. Steve looked around a little and noticed that he was in some snowy place. His head still hurt a little, as if a lot of memories were mixed up. In the young man's head there was a whirlwind of fragments of memories about childhood, teenage life, parents, friends, giant centipedes, people's panic. And the most vivid and terrible memory was of the vile giant Scolopendra, which opened its mouth. Steve grabbed his head. There was only one thing in his thoughts. these blurry memories were all his. Judging by the large amount of snow, the guy realized that he had been transported after all. The young man sighed and shouted sharply that his turn had finally come. Where were the help codes? Where was the unprecedented power? The time had come to prove himself. The rescuers gave Steve a skeptical look and told the captain that this guy didn't seem particularly smart. They agreed that he had brain damage. But then one of the men called out to the captain and said that his identity had been established. It was Steve, an 18-year-old boy from a northern border town. The man became interested in his information that he was the orphan of a fallen hero, a future college freshman, and also a talented student from a prestigious school, so he decided that he needed to be protected. One of the rescuers said that with the appearance of this boy, all the people affected by the beast uprising were identified, and the task was completed perfectly. The man leaned towards the guy and called out to him. He looked up at the rescuer. One of the team asked the young man how long he had survived the Scolopendra, but Steve looked at him with excitement and tried to warn him about something. The chief rescuer said that this was the Lord of the Snowy Plains, the sorcerer Baileys. A huge creature appeared in front of them, looking like an ice dragon and a little like a forest deer. The man explained to the guy not to worry, because the entity must not be able to attack them, so they would deliver the guy back to the city safe and sound. While they were driving, Steve thought that he probably wouldn't die immediately after being reborn. For some time after, the young man sat already all bandaged from numerous times and realized that his whole body hurt. Steve wanted to think he was dreaming, but the pain was too real to dream about. The guy realized that it seemed like he had found himself in another world. The young man took out his wallet and squinted as he looked for something, after which the young man praised himself that he, as always, was handsome. Steve found his university student ID on him and wondered if it was his or not. The young man, with a grin on his face, realized that, judging by his memories, this was one of the most prestigious schools in the north. According to the news, they say that in the depths of the northern part of the snowy plains an otherworldly world has appeared. Otherworldly animals in the form of centipedes have escaped from there, and now night wanderers have cleared them all out. This other world seems to be from the youth's memories. The news added that the public is advised not to visit the northern regions until the exploration of the other world is completed. Meanwhile, the chief daywalker, Danny, arrived at the entrance to the other world. Then the young man noticed the monster that they had seen during the day. There was a man on it. That's right, based on the memories I received, there's a profession in this world called spirit manager. Humans can enter into contracts with the spirit animals of this world, and then control them in battles, conduct reconnaissance, and so on. Steve realized that he didn't seem to be a spirit manager yet, but according to the young man, it was great. The same voice appeared as then in the space-time rift, which again announced confirmation of the status of the corrector. The young man was again indignant that it was that voice again. The guy turned sharply to his beast and told him that he understood that it was he who was saying everything. Steve added to his beast that he most likely became a spirit, and told him if he knew that animals were no longer allowed to become personal spirits. But the beast made a pleased face, and the guy was indignant at him that this was not praise. Suddenly the phone, which was 90% charged, fell out of the guy's pocket. The young man carefully picked up the gadget in his hand. Then the charge number changed by 99%. The young man initially considered it as a joke. The guy wondered if this was not the phone that he took with him from the ground. What had changed? The screen showed a message about the completion of loading the system, receiving a passive skill, receiving an active skill, receiving a task for a beginner, a reward for a task. The young man was glad that he saw the system. The guy was very happy that he actually received the opportunity code and cried out that he wanted to become the god of the new world. But Steve wondered what this traditional art was, whether it meant that if a guy petted a dog he could make it grow. The young man thought that perhaps he could even become a spirit manager. Steve abruptly grabs the dog. It was a little frightened by the strong urges of excitement emitted by the young man. But then blue hologram waves of light and a system notification appeared in front of the guy, congratulating him on becoming a novice spirit manager. This function was unlocked. The young man realized that he had become a manager of spirits, but it seemed to Steve that nothing had changed. But then a new system message appeared with the guy's characteristics. The young man noted that information about him on the system panel had changed. The young man decided to evaluate the new camera feature provided by the system, Steve took a photo of his pet. But then the dog changed its form to a magical star beast. The young man recognized him as the Beast of Emptiness, and that he was there then. The guy added that this is not surprising, he is with him all the time. Steve's memories said that in order to conclude a contract, you need to get the approval of a spiritual beast. But the guy had just concluded a contract without any hindrance, and asked the Beast of Emptiness. This happened because he knew him, but in response the dog barked. The young man asked the beast not to scream so loudly, because he could disturb people. The young man used an interrupt spell, then he added, "Does the beast know how it happened, how he followed the guy into this world?" Steve asked the beast that he didn't know how to return and wanted him to send him home, so the dog did not resist this contract. The young man thought that this was such a power of the beast's language, and realized that he really understood the dog's language. The guy said that at the moment he also does not know how to send him home, but added that since they entered into a contract, Steve will take full responsibility. The void beast happily licked its owner, and the guy decided to try the golden hand skill. In the memories, it was that the natural abilities of individual spirit beasts were classified as inferior, ordinary, good, excellent, and excellent. This is equivalent to the indicator of human intelligence. It exists high and low, and spiritual beasts with high natural abilities are more likely to assimilate and awaken abilities. The guy could not think that he would be able to increase the natural abilities of his contract spirit beasts through the use of the golden hand skill. What was even more surreal for Steve was that this husky had excellent natural characteristics, and seemed to have an unusual husky origin. The young man added that, not to mention, the dog is very cool to the touch. Suddenly Steve felt so tired. His spiritual strength was at 0. The young man instantly fell to the ground unconscious. The room was filled with air from the open window and the barking of a dog. Here the entrance to the other world took place. The sorcerer Bailey said that he felt that something unknown was emerging in the depths of this other world. Danny's wanderer was on the summoned monster and stood calmly. Deep in the other world there was an unknown entity. Something swarmed with its long red tentacles. Inside the cluster of tentacles sat a masked girl. Some time later, a new task appeared, this time raising the level of a contract spirit beast to the usual 2-star level. Steve noted that his husky is now in the app on his phone. There is more data compared to the camera image, experience, mood indicator, evolution materials. The guy noted that it seems that the spirit beast that the guy makes a contract with appears in the system as an application. The most important thing is the evolution materials. This ice crystal can still be found in the memories. But the space-time crystal, the young man had never heard of them, and also this amount of spiritual power. Last night, after just one use of the golden hands, the young man lost consciousness. As a result, Steve was squeezed like lemon and increased the limit of the husky's spiritual powers by only 10 points. But suddenly the guy's reasoning was interrupted by the girl Alex, who asked where the guy was looking so intently. The young man was taken aback by such an unexpected intervention of an acquaintance into his personal space. The young man replied that he was not looking anywhere. This lady Alex was the daughter of the parents of Steve's comrades. The girl considered these actions of the guy suspicious and asked him to let her look. Then the white-haired girl noticed the young man's dog and asked him about getting a dog. Alex was able to steal Steve's phone to see what he was trying to hide from her. The young man continued to ask for the phone back. The girl clarified with the guy that he really has a dog. She did not expect that Steve liked animals and called him crazy. The guy grabbed his spirit and said that this was the same animal. Mentally, the young man thought that he had been carried away. It seemed that he was the only one who could see the special pages of the system. Alex said that she heard that the other day Steve came across an otherworldly rift in the snowy plains and asked if the guy was okay. The young man reported that he was fine, only a little injured. But fortunately, thanks to the huskies, the other wolves of the snowy plains were driven away. The guy was afraid that they could gnaw his bones while the guy was unconscious. The white-haired girl was upset at how a guy could smile while saying such terrible things. The girl added that she would buy the huskies something tasty next time. The young man watched as Alex petted his dog, but then a thought came into his head. Steve invited his friend to take a photo of her furry. Alex said that of course he could, but she asked him if he actually had any perverted hobbies. But the guy was outraged how this was possible. The guy was able to see in the photograph's system messages about natural data, skills and additional information about the power of the stars. The young man was puzzled and asked the girl something. Alex asked the guy what it was. Steve indignantly showed the white-haired photo of the fluffy guy in racy poses and asked the girl what she taught him at home. Alex screamed in embarrassment and asked to quickly delete the photos. Steve tried to calm the girl down from the emotions that washed over her, after which the white-haired girl cleared her throat. Then Alex asked the young man what he was thinking about with a sour expression on his face. Steve said that he made a contract last night with this guy, and was worried about how to upgrade the husky to a 2-star. The girl was surprised that the guy became a spirit manager. She thought that the young man would never make a contract with an animal in his entire life. Alex was wondering why the guy made a contract with the Snowy Plains wolf, because there were many Snowy Plains spiritual beasts, but few could make a contract with the Snowy Plains wolf. The young man asked the girl what was wrong with the wolves of the Snowy Plains. They are cute, and besides, the young man is still alive thanks to this creature. The white-haired girl told the guy that doesn't he know that the temperament of a Snow Plains wolf is not suitable for concluding a contract. Besides, the natural characteristics of Snow Plains wolves are usually relatively low, and their spiritual strength limit is not high. Steve didn't know what to do, because he couldn't tell the lady that his husky wasn't a real husky. The girl laughed and asked the young man not to despair, because they say that the wolves of the Snowy Plains can awaken very powerful companion skills. But Alex thought that it was rare to hear about the awakening of the contract wolf of the Snowy Plains. The guy asked a friend what the companion skill was. The girl explained that companion skills can only appear in spirit beasts who have entered into a contract. For example, her star fox has a chance to awaken a companion skill called Snow Dance. Alex added that due to the consumption of spiritual forces, it allows the fluffy to move faster on snow and ice. The young man listened to her carefully all this time. However, the spiritual power of newbie spirit masters is very weak, even if the contracted spirit beast has high natural ability, and they are lucky enough to awaken a companion skill. It won't even take a few times to exhaust all the strength, and in serious cases they may even faint and lose consciousness. The guy said that, however, if they rested well, their spiritual strength would gradually recover. Alex added that, to put it simply, this can be considered life points in the game. The young man asked how he could then increase his spiritual strength. The girl replied that whenever the contracted spirit animal makes a breakthrough, the contract will nourish the spiritual powers of the spirit manager. Both parties will mutually benefit each other and grow together. This is the original purpose of the spirit contract. Alex added that, however, she had heard that there were natural resources and treasures that could directly increase the spirit master's spiritual power. But of course, this was not something they could access. The guy asked, what about the limit of the spiritual power of spirit beasts? Is it the same? Is it the same as that of the spirit manager? The girl explained that the limit of the soul power of a spirit animal corresponds to its race and level, and it naturally increases. Only a breakthrough is needed. Representatives of the same race can differ greatly in their natural characteristics. Superior natural characteristics are stronger than inferior ones. Of course, these powerful spirit beasts are born with a high spiritual power limit, so they usually use the spirit power index to directly determine the strength of a race. The young man listened to all this carefully and even took notes. The guy realized that this was incredible. But then isn't it a mistake in the system that he can increase the limit of a spirit animal's soul power? The white-haired girl recalled that the young man said that he wanted the husky to rise to the usual 2-star level. The girl offered to let her furry dog train with the husky, but the young man opposed this, because the star fox is much higher level than the husky. Where should they fight? However, in his thoughts, the guy noticed that fighting a 4-star spirit animal should give the husky a lot of experience. Alex told Steve not to worry. She would be lenient, and sent her fur baby ahead. The husky stood silently and waited for action from his opponent in the duel. The animals met their gazes and simply looked at each other for a while. Whitehair noted that the star fox is smaller and more agile, but it does not have the stamina of the Snow Plains wolf. Although Fluffy was of high level, he was not a strong spirit beast and could not withstand several hits from the splitting claw skill. The girl told her star fox to use a snow blast and block the view. And so the Fluffy uses this technique and obscures the view with the husky's snow attack. The wolf of the Snowy Plains closed his eyes as snow got into his eyes. Steve shouted to his stupid dog to quickly dodge, use his ice breath on the snow mass and force it to come out of there. The beast shook off the snow and looked confidently at the enemy, and so the beast directs ice shards at the enemy. but the snow fox blocks the view. The young man was confused, but Alex grinned. Steve realized that due to inexperience, he would make a mistake. The girl noticed that this was really stupid and told the fluffy one to use a snow blast on the husky this time, but take it easy. The young man tells the husky to dodge, and use his splitting claws to push her away, and so the beast began its attack. Star Fox also prepared to fight. The young man noticed that the husky was covered and he was about to turn into a beast of emptiness. Steve ran up and hugged his husky. The guy said that they were admitting defeat, and he asked the husky not to reveal his true form. The girl proudly noted that she understood that she and Fluffy were strong, but the husky himself barked loudly at his opponent. Alex noted that Steve's dog enjoys his patronage, and so two acquaintances with their pets set off. The guy looked at the husky's skills on his phone. They were still unlocked. The young man noted that there were many functions that were not unlocked in the system. He was wondering if the huskies needed to be leveled up to unlock them. It seemed like he needed to upgrade the huskies to 2 stars as soon as possible and unlock them to speed up the leveling up. In addition, the guy needs to find out what the corrector means. Meanwhile, the man told the wanderer Danny that the outer perimeter of the other world is almost cleared of otherworldly beasts. The blonde himself told them to retreat to the entrance to the other world, and he himself decided to try to enter there. The subordinate agreed with Danny's order and watched the departing man leave. Some events later, the teacher congratulated the students on their entry. The man introduced himself as Walt. He was the leader of Group B. He reported that everyone should have seen the news that a new otherworld had appeared in the northern part of the snow field. At the request of their institution, freshman military training will be conducted in the outside world. The result of this military training will be included in their final grades and will affect the professional classification in the following semester. Therefore, the husband asked them to take it seriously. The students began to talk about how there were so many terrifying creatures in that world, but someone reassured them by saying that the wanderer Danny personally went there. Some of the students said that it was safe there, otherwise they would not have sent students there. Someone said that he wanted to go to the operations department, and not to the cannon fodder department. Steve lay on his desk and reasoned that even military training cannot be avoided here. Walt reassured the students not to worry. The surrounding area had been cleared. There were only a few low-level beasts left. It would only be a great lesson in controlling spirit beasts. The man added that military training would begin in a week, so Walt advised to start training, work in groups of 3, take care of each other. Steve was surprised at the mention of groups. The guy immediately looked at Alex and calmed down, because he was sure that she would help him. Steve invited the girl to work together and take care of each other. The white-haired girl agreed. But Alex asked why the young man grabbed the paws of her animal. The girl added that she didn't know where they could find a third person, to which the young man enthusiastically replied that it would be easy. Now he would find someone. With these words, Steve went in search of a third member to his team. The guy approached one of his classmates and asked if he had a group and if he wanted to join them. The classmate answered okay, but asked Steve what kind of spiritual beast he had. The boy had an ordinary 2-star ice snake. The young man showed his usual 1-star snow wolf, and asked how he was to his classmate. The husky looked unfazed. The boy immediately thought that this was his pet, and not a spiritual beast, so he decided that he definitely couldn't be on the same team with Steve. The classmate refused the guy and said that he remembered that he already had a group and suggested looking for someone else. Steve angrily replied to his classmate that they should have talked about this in advance, and not wasted his time. That classmate thought that no one would want to team up with that guy, because snow wolves have poor combat power and low obedience. And meanwhile Steve continued his search for a partner. The young man invited one girl to join, but she refused and suggested that the young man look for someone else. The guy didn't understand what the problem was and why everyone didn't like his wolf. Steve continued his search, but everyone refused him. As a result, the young man became completely desperate. Suddenly, the young man heard someone's voice. The stranger told him that the snow wolf is one of the most common and low-potential lower races. It is amazing that someone made a contract with him. The unknown person added that he doesn't even know if it's because of stupidity or poverty. Steve became angry at the redhead's harsh remark and swung at him in a blow. But the stranger simply apologized to the guy for offending him. The young man remained silent and was about to leave. The redhead looked after the guy leaving. Steve decided to return to Alex. Meanwhile, other classmates approached her and offered to join, since they were missing one member, but the girl refused, since she already had a group. And so Steve returned to the white-haired one. The guy sat down next to him, and said that no one wanted to team up with him. The girl explained that, of course, everyone wants to be with the strongest, and the snow wolf was not the best choice. Meanwhile, one guy, Luis, was surrounded by his classmates and offered to team up with him, since he had a 5-star beast. But the blonde refused everyone, since he already had a group. Luis followed somewhere, and the redhead watched his movement askance. The redhead was angry about something. Steve sat with the husky and consoled him and himself that it was okay. He would make them regret it. The young man was holding the phone in his hand. The guy couldn't unlock the quick absorption skill yet, but it would definitely impress everyone during military training. The young man asked Alex where in the city there was a suitable place for training beginners in spirit control. The girl replied that there was a spirit control pavilion. She trained there during the summer holidays. They increased the level to the usual 4 stars. The white-haired girl said that if she had known that the guy would choose to control spirits, she would have taken him with her. Alex added that the pavilion is free for orphans like her and Steve. Well, of course, this is only limited to the period of mental control of the newcomer. The girl said that the guy could raise the level to 2 stars in just a week. The young man was delighted and said that tomorrow we will go there and take a look. But then the young man's husky began to bark loudly. The guy asked the animal to stop barking so loudly in the audience. The snow wolf made an angry face. Meanwhile, Danny said to convey his order, "Let the parade enter another world tomorrow." The blonde added that the snowy plain army would be at the entrance, so let them remember to remind others that they should not enter the depths of the otherworld core. The next day, Alex and Steve showed up at the Spirit Control Pavilion, and the girls asked to see their ID. The guy handed his ID to the pavilion workers. The worker was surprised that this guy was one of the children of martyrs. The girls silently bowed to the young man. The guys entered the Spirit Control Pavilion. People had already gathered there, training with their creatures. The girls said that this layer is especially for beginners, and there is a layer higher up for more advanced ones. Steve asked Alex that she had been training here for 2 months. The girl replied that yes, it was still free. First she went to Steve, but he said that he was going to the snow field to do some research, and I didn't want to take her with me. The white-haired girl added that she couldn't contact the guy, but she was very glad that everything was okay with Steve. The young man wondered what he was looking for then, and why he didn't remember it. The guys proceeded to the right room, and all this time the young man wondered what he was hiding. The white-haired one indicated that they were in the right place. The guy was so lost in himself that he almost passed by. Alex said that the young man was a husky in a past life. Then a young man greeted the girl and said that he remembered that she had 4 stars, and then asked if she was going to start the test of normal difficulty. The white-haired one said no, because today she brought a friend. The man noticed that her fox was well-mannered. The stranger reminded the girl that he couldn't forget how easily Alex had taken 3rd place on the list of 1-star permits. The girl modestly replied that it was just luck. Steve asked her what this permission list was. The girl pointed her finger in front of her and added that this is it. In front of them was a blue screen of a list of a simple difficulty level. Alex was the 3rd on it. The guy didn't understand anything, but said that yes, cool. The girl said that there are 200 2-star boars in the simple testing ground. Ordinary people cannot pass through it at all. The girl added that those who can get on the list can receive many awards, so the girl received 4 stars. The guy asked what the rewards were. The man explained that those on the list would be given lifelong luxury and all the facilities in the building could be used at a discount. The worker added that regarding the reward, it would not disappoint the guy. None of the aspiring spirit lords said that he did not like it. The man then asked Steve if he wanted to take the test and where his contract spirit beast was. The guy showed the worker his husky, to which he replied that the young man should not joke. The young man asked if his dog was not scary. Alex intervened and confirmed that the snow wolf was his spirit beast. The man stopped smiling and said that although this test is easy, but there are 200 2-star snow boars simulated on the training ground, it will be difficult for a snow wolf to defeat even one snow boar. Moreover, they only have 1 star. The worker added that a low-level race such as the snow wolf would not be able to pass the normal difficulty test, so he advised giving up and not letting the contract spirit beast suffer. But Steve curtly replied that until he tried, he would not know. After which the young man asked if he could begin the test. The man said that he could, it was his choice, but he would notify the medical staff, and he asked Alex if she would stop him. The girl answered with a smile that she believed in him, and the worker announced the beginning. The first boar appeared. The beast's eyes glowed red. He was embittered. The guy told his wolf that when the boar runs up to make him jump up and attack his neck with his claws, and asked him not to show his main body, they only need to hold out to get the second star. The husky barked in agreement, and so the spiritual beast ran towards the enemy. The boar rushed at him at full speed, but the husky flew up. In the air, the contract beast was able to attack the boar, but everything went slowly, although the husky managed to scratch the animal. The boar quickly turned around and ran straight towards the spirit beast. The husky stood and did not move, and several more wild boars appeared behind him. Steve shouted to his dog to look around. Wild boars surrounded the spirit beast on all sides, and then one of the wild boars attacked the husky. The dog managed to dodge, and the predatory enemy flew away from him. Then another boar ran towards the dog at full speed. This enemy hit the contract beast directly in the side. The snow wolf flew a long distance after colliding with a strong opponent. With difficulty the wolf rose to his feet. He was covered with wounds. The landfill worker was surprised that his one-star wolf really had something special. He couldn't believe that he could still get up. Alex watched the battle intently and mentally wished her friends good luck. Although the snow wolf was all wounded, he was still on his feet and preparing to fight his enemies. The husky looked at Steve with a serious look, and the young man looked back at him. The spirit beast concentrated as it was surrounded by 200 pairs of wild red boar eyes. They did not give the husky a chance to win. Every time he fell attacked by the enemy. Suddenly the girl noticed something strange. A strong red aura covered the spirit beast's body. Alex and the man were surprised that the Snow Plains wolf had such a skill. The girl said that it was the first time she had seen a snow wolf in such a state, covered with a red aura. The landfill worker said he thought he saw it somewhere, but couldn't immediately remember where. And now the contract beast, already covered in a red aura, gained a new wave of strength for battle. The man realized that this was the pressure of a lord, an intimidation skill that only population rulers have, but suddenly appeared in an ordinary first-level spirit beast. The girl asked him what kind of intimidation skill it was. The worker explained that this is a skill that rulers are born with. If it were a normal snow boar, it would be stunned or run away in fear. Only these snow boars were virtual. They have no self-awareness and are not afraid of intimidation. The young man and his snow wolf became wary. Then the contract beast moved into battle. The man was shocked by what he saw. He thought that the ants would also kill the elephant. Even if he awakened the intimidation skill, it would not be easy for him to defeat the virtual boars. Alex thought that this was not a simple snow wolf at all. The boars decided to try out a new form of attack. They formed snow spheres while running. But even this did not pass. The husky attacked the enemies approaching him with all speed. The guy screamed that from the husky. Why did he suddenly become much stronger? Was he really using the skills of his main body? Steve looked at the phone at the system characteristics. The wolf was in a state of unknown blessing. The young man wondered what kind of blessing this was from an unknown creature, and when this skill appeared, whether this red mist meant that the awakening of a true beast had occurred looked quite ferocious. The wolf, covered in a red aura, continued to crush his enemies, while the boars jumped on him. But the contract beast destroyed all the enemies that attacked it. The man remembered that this red bloody mist was similar to the bloody aura of Wolf King, but this was the legendary race of the true ancestors of wolves. But how could it manifest itself in the body of a Snow Plains wolf? Alex wondered if this was the awakening of the bloodline. The training ground worker replied that he had heard that some contracted spirit beasts could ignite the blood of the ancients at the fateful moment. The man added that there are awakenings along the bloodline, but only individuals with the most excellent natural data have a minimal probability of awakening. According to the training ground worker, the awakening of a one-star ordinary level, and even a snow wolf, is unheard of. The state of this Snow Plains wolf seems even more powerful than the awakening of a bloodline. The man noted that who would have the opportunity to see such a legendary event with his own eyes. The worker reported that after awakening the bloodline, he had defeated 44 two-star snow boars out of 200. Alex happily asked that Steve could pass this test. The man replied that of course he could. Besides, if this bloodline awakening state could last longer, it was possible that he could compete for the top spot on the list. The employee thought that this incident should be reported to the boss as soon as possible. Alex continued to encourage the young man to fight more and more. but the man told the girl that Steve couldn't hear her. Meanwhile, the guy shouted to the husky to be careful. The contract beast turned around and looked around. Enemies were lurking nearby, but had not yet acted. The guy wondered how many of these boars there were still. The young man thought that there was no end to his enemies. But suddenly a system notification appeared about increasing the level to 2 stars, increasing the development speed of the contract beast. The young man was congratulated on completing the task and gaining the skill of quickly mastering it. The guy was surprised by this promotion. Steve wondered if it was awakened or a passive type of companion skill, as if the beast had awakened specifically for this situation. And now the wolf is no longer the same as before. The husky began to strike at the wild boars. His red aura became even larger and stronger. Steve noted that the ice-breathing skill is of little use for thick-skinned snow boars. All that remains is to continue to use the splitting claw. The guy realized that if the snow wolf had not awakened this skill, the husky's spiritual strength would not have been enough. They would not have survived. The youth said that if the husky could independently activate this unknown blessing skill, coupled with rapid absorption, perhaps he could even rise to 3 ordinary stars before military training. The contract beast continued to fight the wild boars, crushing them one by one. The young man noticed that almost half of it had already been completed. The girl thought that even though the interval was getting longer and longer, and the speed of defeating the snow boars was slowing down, how could his snow wolf still be able to use the splitting claw skill? Alex wondered if the awakening of the bloodline had also restored spiritual strength. The girl added that it was possible that some special companion skill had awakened in him. The man said that he had never seen a spirit beast awaken a companion skill during the transition from 1 star to 2, not to mention that it was not common for a snow plains wolf to even have good natural abilities. The landfill worker admitted that this child's snowy plains wolf is unusual, but he may not have excellent natural characteristics. The girl told the man that Steve told her that his snow plains wolf had excellent natural abilities. These words killed the landfill worker. The man laughed nervously and said that's right. Just seeing this awakening of the bloodline, the superior natural ability doesn't seem that shocking. The landfill worker thought that this was still the snow plains wolf he knew, the awakening of the bloodline, the companion skill. Meanwhile, the contract beast was still fighting against the wild boars. When the enemy surrounded the regiment, Steve told him to jump. After these words, the husky flew up. The guy thought that 200 snow boars is so many. It seems that it is completely impossible to kill them all. And again the boars surrounded the wolf of the snowy plains. The system displayed a message that there were already 83 virtual spirit beasts left. Time after time, their number decreased. Now there were 70 of them, and then 24. Now the husky, without much difficulty, scattered one wild boar after another. And this continued until the very last enemy, until the system brought the virtual spiritual beasts to 0. After such a scolding, the man was no longer sure whether this was really a wolf of the snowy plains. The guy replied that, of course. The landfill worker thought about how about trying to go and contract a snowy plains wolf in the wild. Then the man noticed that the rating had changed. Alex said that she had already told him that Steve could do it. Everyone at the training ground has noticed that the easy difficulty leaderboard for level 1 has been updated. Those present in the halls could not understand how this was possible. Who could get ahead of the first in the top 3 list? People noticed this update one after another. Those around began to discuss Steve's name, and when such a person appeared in the city, he took first place as soon as he arrived. This is even more impressive than the previous first place winner, because the previous winner took a week to achieve this. People thought that a genius had come to town. They were wondering what kind of spirit beast this Steve had made a contract with. It must be a super powerful rare spirit beast. Its awakening speed is almost an hour faster than the previous winner. Steve was pleased with his success and new record in this challenge. The young man approached the man and asked what his passing time was. The test site worker told him that he would take a look now, and then replied that Steve completed the test in 2 hours and 53 minutes, which is almost an hour faster than the previous record holder. The young man jumped with joy that he was now first. The young man was very happy about this. Steve thought about it. He was wondering what the reward would be. It would be good if it was money. Alex angrily told the guy not to say that he thinks about money. The reward for first place should be especially valuable, something that money cannot buy. But the landfill worker said that they don't have to worry about it. For the boy Steve, their institution will not skimp on the reward. The young man with sparkles in his eyes asked what the reward would be. The man replied that he couldn't say for sure yet. It all depended on the will of the owner of the pavilion. The pavilion worker said that Steve would not be disappointed. The previous winner, who took first place, was given a precious fire crystal by the owner. But the man noticed that the guy and girl had already disappeared. Steve asked Alex where she picked up her reward. She replied that it was in the lobby, but warned the guy not to ask for money. The pavilion worker called out to them and told them not to leave the man behind. But the worker had only one thing on his mind: not to let them leave, because he needed to introduce Steve to the owner of the pavilion. The man caught up with the guys as fast as he could and shouted at them to wait. But then he found the guys at the lobby. An elderly man was talking to them. He was the owner of the pavilion. As the vice president of the Snow Plains Spirit Controlling Association, the owner is usually very busy, and even when he returns to the Spirit Control Pavilion, he does not show himself in public, which is why the man wondered why the pavilion owner came out into the lobby today. The young man announced to his uncle that he had come to collect his reward. The manager asked Steve if he was number 1 on the easy level of the first floor. Everyone present widened their eyes at him. They did not believe that this was the Steve who had beaten the previous winner, because he did not look like that at all. People noticed that the Snowy Plains Wolf was with him. They were amazed that Steve had made a contract with the Snowy Plains Wolf. It was impossible for them to take first place with the Snow Plains Wolf, so it was easier for them to believe that the Snow Fox was his contract spirit animal. The leader asked the guy if he had entered into a contract with this wolf of the Snowy Plains. Steve gave a positive answer. The man noted that it was very interesting. This wolf of the Snowy Plains really could. It seems like the awakening of the bloodline. Unexpectedly, we'll look forward to the development of these two. The leader noticed that the one-star wolf of the Snowy Plains topped the list when he first visited the Spirit Control Pavilion. This child may become the next Vivian, or perhaps his future achievements may even surpass hers. The man asked what Steve would like. He could provide everything that the leader could do. The young man asked what kind of guy was in charge and would give him what he wanted. Behind him, the pavilion worker covered his face with his hand, considering the boy stupid, because he didn't know who he was standing in front of if he dared to say that. The man answered Steve that, of course, he would. After all, he founded this Spirit Control Pavilion. Steve and Alex were shocked and confused by the old man's unexpected words. They were surprised that this man was the owner of the pavilion. The old man confirmed that this was true. Then the leader again asked what the young man would like as a reward. Steve asked if he could ask for money, but Alex was against this and pinched the guy from behind, after which the guy said that he was joking and would be happy with anything that the manager chooses for him. The girl laughed and called Steve a brat, and then added that she liked his ingenuity. The leader said that since the young man said so, he didn't want to give him something bad. The old man found the guy interesting, and thought that it was not in vain that he came to meet him personally, and so the man decided that he would give it to the guy. Steve and Alex warily awaited the leader's words. The old man announced that in addition to the usual rewards, the materials for the first evolution of the Snowy Plains Wolf with whom the guy entered into a contract would be fully paid for by the Spirit Control Pavilion, and asked the young man if such a reward would suit him. The guys were shocked after the leader's words. The man hoped that Steve could become a representative of the governing spirits of the city at the upcoming competitions, and show everything he was capable of. Everyone present in the pavilion thought that all the materials for evolution, isn't this a better reward than Vivian's? Does the owner of the pavilion have a higher opinion of this young man? Someone thought that the evolution materials of the Snow Plains Wolf were not that valuable. It was a pity that it was just a Snow Plains Wolf. The evolution materials provided were more likely to be wasted. Steve thanked the owner of the pavilion for the awards, but then the leader suggested something to the young man. The man asked the guy if he would like to try to overcome the level on normal difficulty with the strength demonstrated by his wolf of the Snowy Plains. Steve noted that trying a higher difficulty level immediately after the first indicated that the leader had a fairly high opinion of the young man. The old man said that the guy was quite modest, but then he said that he was joking. He was too busy to spend several hours watching his tests. The guy simply replied that okay then. The young man did not know what was happening with the husky at the moment, so he decided not to attract too much attention. But this situation already caused quite a stir. The leader added that Steve would remember to book in advance if he wanted to take the normal difficulty test. It's just that the old man would like to see with his own eyes the awakening of the bloody wolf lion of the snowy plains. The next day, many students were crowded together, discussing something. Someone said that this guy, the one who took first place yesterday, Steve, they would like to see how strong his snow wolf is. They suspected that even if the snow plains wolf is able to take first place, then this is exactly what scam. They wanted to reveal his face. Meanwhile, Steve was training with his spirit beast. The guy activated his splitting claw ability. Thanks to this, the wolf of the snowy plains easily won the tests. On the third day, the observers realized that they were right. In reality, the wolf was not that strong. The guys thought that they could do the same. Steve and his wolf are both trying very hard. This is already the third day of continuous intense training. The young man noted something for himself during these 3 days. As expected, without using True Beast Awakening again, the passage time slowed down with a 2-star husky with the carnivorous habit skill being able to handle ordinary level challenges completely effortlessly. On the 4th day, the guys noted that there really was a little something about the Snowy Plains wolf, and the girl who was there said that Steve and his Snowy Plains wolf were so beautiful. The guys thought this girl was abnormal. The young man understood that with such training and with the help of the quick absorption skill, he thought that he could practically reach 3 stars before military training. Meanwhile, his spiritual beast was already chasing the pigs around the pavilion back and forth. This was given to the husky without much effort. On the 5th day, both guys thought the wolf of the Snowy Plains was cool. They noted that the Snowy Plains wolf was truly eye-catching, making them want to contract with one in the wild. The boys considered Brother Steve and his wolf of the Snowy Plains to be what they aspired to. Then the third observer came up. She was wearing strange clothes. Steve's name was written on the items, and he was drawn by a wolf of the Snowy Plains. And all 3 of them took flashlights in their hands and began to support Brother Steve. Meanwhile, the young man was relaxing on a lounger with a glass in his hand. He remembered Alex saying that she had killed 2 months to get 4 stars, while he was going to get 3 in a week, which should be pretty fast. The best in the class, it seems, had 5 stars. The guy was sure that he would soon catch up and even surpass him. In the tests for beginners controlling spirits, there were 3 difficulty levels. From the 1st to the 3rd star was considered an easy difficulty level. From the 4th to the 6th star, this was already a normal difficulty level, and from the 7th to the 9th star was considered difficult. The young man thought that if he reached 3 stars, he might actually try to go to the normal difficulty level. But after these days, the training felt more and more easy. The guy thought that perhaps it was time to go to the Snowy Plains or to the other world, to fight so that the husky would significantly improve. In comparison, the other world is more dangerous and has more opportunities. This military training was a great chance to get acquainted with it. The guy realized that lately his wolf had been simply running after a flock of wild boars. Steve yells at the dog that he is a husky and not a herding dog. Meanwhile, at Luis's house, the blonde man was sitting at the computer monitor late at night. The boy was staring intently at something. On the monitor screen there was some pretty girl who called Luis brother. However, at that moment a man entered the guy's room and addressed the blonde as a young master. The person reported that recently in the Spirit Control Pavilion, a newcomer appeared at the top of the list of easy difficulty. It seems to be one of his classmates. Luis frantically tried to block the computer monitor with his hands. The blonde abruptly snatched the sheet from the servant's hands and told him that the next time he came here, remember to knock. Luis looked at the piece of paper. He realized what kind of person it was. The blonde remembered that it seemed that no one wanted to form a team with this guy. Such a person was able to update Vivian's record, which no one could beat for 10 years. Luis wanted to be on the team alone during military training, but now he doesn't even know if his team has enough people. On the day of military training, students stood outside large buses, getting ready to leave. Steve has been continuously killing for so many days in the Spirit Control Pavilion, and the husky feels that he will soon reach 3 stars. The guy decided that during military training he would try his best to achieve 3 stars before returning. When this happened, they would try to pass the test of the usual difficulty level. Then a man approached Steve and Alex. He asked if their team was complete and if they were confident in their abilities. The guys answered the boss that, in fact, it was just the 2 of them. The boss asked Luis whether this was true. The blonde replied that it was nothing, he just forgot to apply. Steve tried to understand this situation, after which the guy was completely at a loss. The young man with 5 stars extended his palm to him. Lewis kindly asked Steve if he could join their team. The blonde said that their team was still missing one person that Steve thought could join their team. The guy added that his spirit beast was a 5-star snow elf. The blonde wanted to take the opportunity to test the real strength of the leader in the ranking, because he was training right at home, so he did not have a good chance to go to the spirit control pavilion. Some girl jumped into the conversation and told Lewis how it happened that he was on the same team with them. The blonde asked her if they didn't all have full teams already. She said didn't the guy tell them before that he already had teammates. Lewis tried to make excuses that he had temporary business. He was leaving just then. The girl pointed her finger at Steve and said that the contract beast on their team was only a 1-star wolf of the snowy plains. The blonde chuckled and said he didn't mind since they were the only team short-handed. Then other girls came up and offered to join them instead of joining the team of losers. The girl decided to drive one away to give way to the blonde. Another was indignant that hadn't they agreed on this before. But she replied that Lewis had a 5-star snow elf. He was equal to 3 like that girl. The girls shouted at Steve to return Lewis to them. The guy was surprised. The young man asked the lady if he owed her anything. The guy quickly talked to Alex, after which Steve said that he had just given the list to the teacher, and Lewis was already on his team, so he told the woman that she had no chance. That lady was just furious. The girl grabbed the hand of a team member whom she wanted to drive away a couple of minutes ago, and ran away with it. The lady then said that to think that Lewis had to defend this loser was unbearable. The blonde guiltily told his partners that he seemed to have caused them trouble. Alex reassured him that everything was fine and they didn't mind. Steve added that it was even good that he joined their team. Otherwise there were only 2 of them on it. The teacher concluded that since their teams were complete, then let everyone board the buses. All the students boarded buses and went to military training. The redhead glared angrily at Steve's team. He thought Lewis was cunning, because he chose a team that no one wanted to join in order to use it as a shield. The young man gloated to the blonde that how could he achieve results in this training if he chose a team of losers. He would not be able to do this even if he was twice as strong. Then the guy switched to discussing a girl who had a rather rare snow fox. But what use is a snow plains wolf who was a 1-star a week ago, and now will meet his death as a 2-star? Isn't he a hindrance? The redhead noticed that what use would Lewis have from his choice? If it was only about demonstrating his own strength, then it would be quite possible to create a team alone. But is it possible that that snow fox is very strong? The guy thought that the loser's name was something like Steve, a somewhat familiar name, similar to the one who recently broke Vivian's record in the Spirit Control Pavilion and attracted quite a lot of attention. A 2-star wolf of the snowy plains, capable of passing the tests of the Spirit Control Pavilion. What nonsense! It was most likely his namesake. Lewis asked Steve that it was he and his baby husky who destroyed the ranking of spirit managers the other day. The guy answered that yes, but asked how he found out. The blonde said that the guy made so much noise that it was difficult not to recognize. Lewis said that he thought that the students in his class had not yet realized who exactly broke Vivian's record. The blonde said that the guy probably doesn't know that in their control pavilion, in the ranks of novice, student and pro spirit manager, Vivian has held all the existing records for 10 years. Lewis added that Steve was the first to break her record, although he is only at beginner level on easy difficulty. The guy thought that it turns out that the top part of the list, for which he was fighting, is so good. The blonde said that what luck there is, those who were included in this ranking won victory with their strength. Steve should know that next to the other world it is more dangerous. But still, fighting in the other world is the only way to develop the strength of his contract beast. Steve listened carefully to the blonde's words, but then Lewis said that when they got there, why don't they head deeper and have some fun? Steve replied that it was possible. He just wanted to see what otherworldly animals were like. The guy thought that he could perhaps find the key to the missing fragment of his memory. But then Alex intervened and said touchily that the guys didn't even want to know her opinion. Steve asked if she wouldn't go with them. The girl confidently said that she would go, but the guys would not be able to ignore her and make decisions without permission. Lewis and Steve agreed. Then the young man asked why he had not seen their other contract animals. He was told that they kept their beasts in the spirit domain and only summoned them when they needed to fight. Steve asked what a spiritual domain was. Alex explained that it was a kind of portable space that used the spirit contract as an intermediary. It allowed contracted spirit beasts to rest and recover, and it could be opened by all spirit controllers. The girl showed how it works and snapped her fingers. A blue glow appeared at her heart, after which the snow fox disappeared. The guy imagined this domain as some kind of box. Then the young man asked how to open this domain. Alex replied that it was very simple and snapped her fingers again. The girl said that Steve needs to precisely direct his power in such a way as to feel the contract of the spirit with his spiritual beast, and the contract will open the spiritual domain in the guy. Lewis said that he doesn't use his spirit domain often because his beast is small and doesn't take up much space. With these words, the elf hid in his clothes and said that he was not taking up space at all. Steve asked that you need to feel the spirit agreement. Alex said happily that this was certainly not an easy process. It would take a newbie like Steve, who controls spirits, a week or more to be able to do it. But then the girl was shocked. The guy tried to establish a connection with the domain. Lewis, like Alex, widened his eyes at the guy. Two teammates watched Steve's actions. His heart began to glow blue, after which his dog disappeared, and the young man was pleased to say that he had opened it. Alex congratulated her friend, but in her heart she was indignant that it took her 3 days to open her spiritual domain. Lewis mentally noted that while it took him a couple of days to open the spiritual domain, Steve didn't even need 2 minutes to do it. The blonde decided that he had made the right choice by teaming up with him. Meanwhile, the buses were moving to their destination. On the snowy terrain there were towns with military equipment. One truck was carrying a bound monster in the form of a centipede. A huge monster howled and was bound with barbed wire. The men were discussing the arrival of buses. It seemed that new students from the university had arrived. Another person said that their administration is really smart. They managed to start military preparations just in time for the other world that had just opened. And here they are killing otherworldly animals. And they seem to be going on a campaign. The first man told the other not to say that. Who knows, maybe one of them will become his comrade in the future. And besides, they kill otherworldly animals for the sake of their future. So he suggested that his comrade just calmly deliver the carcasses. The man noted that they have quite a large beast here. Yet this individual is supposedly superior to the normal level, and it should be an elite level queen. The man said that even if she was so strong, didn't they kill her? But the captain asked him not to be arrogant. But suddenly this monster moved. Meanwhile, the students arrived for military training. The students left their buses when something impressive caught their attention. In front of the group of students was a large scolopendra tied up. It was an otherworldly beast. While everyone was looking at the new creature, Steve tried to use his power. The guy noted that the domain is amazing. One of the students noticed that the scolopendra had just moved. The young man wondered whether she was alive or not, whether she could suddenly attack. But the second guy said not to slander or scare others. Meanwhile, Steve reasoned that inside the domain he could communicate with the husky through his consciousness. Only now the space of the spiritual domain is still not enough. But the guy noted that the spirit beasts seemed to really like this place. The men reported that they had arrived to hand over the corpse of an otherworldly beast. Another man said okay and said he would call someone to unload the carcass. Suddenly, the monster's carcass burst and a fountain of green liquid poured out of it. The men next to her were shocked. Many smaller monsters crawled out of the centipede's body. The men tried to run away from otherworldly beasts. Centipedes crawled out of the body of a large individual. The students standing nearby panicked. Everyone started screaming and running away. The man announced that others should immediately destroy the fleeing beasts, the safety of the students being the priority. His subordinates immediately moved to carry out the commander's order. The squad of men could not believe that they did not find a single living larva in his corpse. Someone said that, based on the known information, these otherworldly scolopendras, even the weakest larvae, have the usual level of 7 stars. If they rush into the crowd, it will be a one-sided massacre. But the centipede had already attacked the crowd. One girl screamed in horror not to be eaten. The man understood that they had too few people. The girl continued to scream, and the centipede was preparing to attack her.